Attention Talking Simpsons listeners, we have a new podcast miniseries exclusively on Patreon right now.
For $5 and up subscribers at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, you get Talk King of the Hill Season 2, Part 1.
That's right, we're returning to King of the Hill once again, putting out 11 new episodes covering the first half of the show's second season. Again, that is patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. Be there or be not right.
I heartily endorse this event or product.
Ahoy hoy everybody, and welcome to Talking Simpsons, where it's all your fault. I'm your host, the blow-dried college boy Bob Mackey, and this is our chronological exploration of The Simpsons. Who is here with me today?
Hey, it's Henry Gilbert, and every year I outstrip myself in succulence.
And who do we have on the line?
Tim Kalpakis. Hey guys, how's it going?
And today's episode is Bart versus Thanksgiving.
I hope you're happy, Bart. You ruined Thanksgiving.
This episode aired on November 22nd, 1990, and as always, Henry will tell us what happened on this mythical day in real world history.
Oh boy, Bobby, today Margaret Thatcher resigned as the Prime Minister, and I hope she rots in hell. The Undertaker debuts in the World Wrestling Federation, and the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, but called the Super Famicom, launches in Japan alongside Super Mario World.
Wow. We wouldn't get it for 9 more months.
Yeah, long wait we had to make. But I realized as I said that Undertaker thing that I've had like 7 different Undertaker news bits.
It's true. And I'll use the same joke I used before. He's never been scarier than when he revealed himself as a Blue Lives Matter guy.
Yes. The Undertaker did make his debut at the yearly Thanksgiving pro wrestling event called Survivor Series. And so,
okay. So that would be he was on his first Paul Bearer at the time.
Yes, yeah.
Got
Paul
it.
Bearer was, well, he wasn't slim, but he was young. And yeah, I guess we need British listeners to talk about how Margaret Thatcher got edged out of the Prime Minister position and had to resign or something. But
is that covered in V for Vendetta? I have read that.
That could only imagine. That was written early in her regime, so I would guess it was people in anonymous masks that got her to resign. But Super Mario World, one of the best video games like ever.
Yes.
Love that game. The introduction of Yoshi, he was born that day.
He was, and dinosaurs just took over the 90s from that point on.
the coolest.
I just watched the Super Mario Brothers movie, and it's so Mario World specific. They're in like Dino World and stuff, and they chose to really get behind that that video game instead of the earlier ones. It was bizarre.
I think they just basically stopped at Dino World and then wrote their movie because there's nothing in the movie that's anything like Mario. In fact, the princess in the movie is from Mario Land.
Yes.
That was a weird
That's
pull.
what I'm thinking of. Yes.
It's so
yeah.
weird
Why
that-
wouldn't there be Peach? Everyone's tuning in for Peach, and we get Princess Daisy. Come on.
And everybody's like a pile of mucus. Like, yeah.
And it's really the Luigi movie, ultimately.
Oh, Leguizamo's breakout role.
I liked seeing, there was a funny thing like 10 years ago, Leguizamo, I saw him in an interview get asked about that movie, and he's just trashing on it, like, worst movie ever, Bob Hoskins and me were drunk every day. And then 5 years ago, he's asked by fans of the movie to, like, record a thing for the anniversary, and in that, he's like, not everybody's favorite movie, but you fans keep it alive. Like, I appreciate it.
How his tone has changed.
I think it would be so great if on the 25th anniversary of something, he was like, I hate this and it's embarrassing to me, even though you guys love it so much.
You're wrong to like it, and I despise you. But yes, our special guest today is Tim Kalpakis, one of our favorite people. One of the birthday boys also was a writer on Comedy Bang Bang and I Love You America. Welcome to the show, Tim.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And don't forget, my most important credit is production assistant on The Simpsons.
That was our special surprise for the listeners. And you are, I think, one of 2 production assistants I think we've talked to so far on this show.
Yes, we talked to Kate Raft a little bit ago, and I think she came after you.
I think I paved the way for Kate.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess let's start there. Like, how did you start there while you're beginning your Hollywood comedy career?
Yes, it was my first showbiz job, so I would be sort of doing getting really, really, really into UCB and doing sketches at UCB every night. So then I was just a terrible employee I was specifically working for Gracie Films. So I was like James L. Brooks's production assistant, and I would drive things back and forth from the Fox lot to the Sony lot where he was. But I had the job for 4 years, and like in Hollywood terms, there's like no such thing as a production assistant who works someplace for 4 whole years. You're supposed to be promoted. And so in retrospect, I was kind of grumping around the place. And now I look back and just think it was probably all my fault. And I did a really bad job there.
You really brought the show down.
Yeah.
I've heard tales that the one way they're able to splurge usually at The Simpsons is getting a big meal or like crazy meals. So as the lunch guy, you probably had some tough giant orders to fill.
Where they really did, you could see. I mean, I think this happens at a lot of offices where lunch, it takes on so much meaning because your whole morning is spent just being like, oh man, lunch is going to be good, and we'll power through lunch. And Simpsons was that, like, to the greatest degree, where we would always get lunch from a different restaurant every day. But then you could, if you didn't want anything from the restaurant, you could get from the Fox commissary, which was pretty good commissary food as well. And it started off as like, if you were a vegan and you didn't want from the burger place you're getting, you could get soup from the commissary. But then it just sort of turned into everybody mixing and matching, like within one writer's lunch. They're like, commissary soup and then an entree from the restaurant. And could you stop by Starbucks and get me a piece of cake? And I would be putting down a brown grocery bag for each writer, and they would have a stack of lunch that they would go to town on. And it seemed very wasteful to me, but it's like, hey, if that's what was powering them through this job and inspiring them, that's what they needed.
Who had like the funniest lunch order, or were they all just like the same like islands kind of order usually?
They were. I remember that Matt Selman is a foodie.
Oh yeah.
So he was sort of interested in food. So and I don't even know Matt Selman, but I handed him his lunch. And I remember like a lot of the guys just would want like Junior's Deli and just a pastrami sandwich and something that was just classic lunch food. So I feel like that Selman would be the one who was excited about getting something maybe like a little more international, whatever. But I also remember him having the biggest bag where it would be like maybe like four lunches piled up so that he could taste them all.
I've heard tell that Mike Mitchell, did he follow you as working there? Was that at the same time?
I hooked him up with that job because you know what happened is they were hiring a PA, and Mitch was my friend, and I brought his resume in, and I went to the receptionist and I said, hey, this is my friend Mitch. Can you submit him to be a PA? And the receptionist relayed it up the chain as, this is Tim's friend. And they thought that it was Tim Long's friend, not Tim Kalpakis' friend. So Mitch got an interview. A lot of people submitted, but Mitch got an interview based on that misinformation that the writer Tim Long was recommending him. Yeah, then Mitch got the job. We worked there together. He was more like a writer's PA while I was working for Jim Brooks. But he had, one of the all-time low moments was they sent Mitch out for dinner, and he went to Junior's Deli and got 30 dinners, all different types. And then when he got back with the food, they had all left for the night and decided that they weren't going to have dinner, but nobody texted him. And Mitch cried.
Oh, poor guy.
Oh, God.
And I felt so bad for him, but I said, hey, bring all the food up to my house. And then we brought 30 different dinners up to my sketch group's house, and the 7 of us sat and ate 30 dinners. Like we just opened them all up and had forks and just went to town on them.
That's I love it. Was subsidizing the birthday boys. I love that.
Well,
yeah, they helped us out big time.
This is a very Jim Brooksy episode, so you can tell us if he showed you the same kind of warmth he shows in his comedy writing.
Oh yes, he shows that warmth to everybody. I noticed that too. I was watching and thinking these early seasons, it is very Brooksy. Everything is tugs at the heartstrings, and it works.
I think he was doing it until he started like working on the As Good as It Gets. Once that production started up, that probably took him away from Simpsons.
Yeah, exactly. Then he was in movie mode.
And Tim, were you watching this on Thanksgiving Day in 1990?
Nope. I was a late bloomer with The Simpsons. So 1990, I'm 7 years old, but probably still just watching kiddie cartoons and not cool ones like The Simpsons. So I caught on later. I bet I would have seen this in, my Simpsons heyday would have been like late 90s, early 2000s when it was on my local affiliate, like at 6 p.m., 6:30 p.m., and then 11 and 11:30, and I'd watch like 4 episodes per night. That's probably when I first laid eyes on this episode.
Oh, yeah. Your time on the PA thing, that must have overlapped with some of the movie production, too. So was that even busier than other times when you were working there?
It was, and you're exactly right. That when I started, they were midway into the movie.
Wow.
So everyone was telling me, like, it's not usually like this. This is crazy. But, to me, I'm still just getting lunches, so I'm not really taking on any of that stress. But it made me very happy as a comedy nerd. All the old writers who had left and become billionaires were back for the movie. So just John Schwartzwelder with like a big handlebar mustache would be standing outside smoking all day.
Wow.
And I never said more than hi and bye to him, but that guy, I was, idolized him and had heard all these stories about how he lives in the desert and collects Civil War artifacts and stuff like that. And then one time I made a delivery up to George Meyer, the writer of this very episode.
Oh, wow.
And I was in his driveway. He lived in Wilt Chamberlain's old house.
Whoa. Wow.
Nice, on Mulholland Drive. And I was delivering maybe a script to him. And I said, hey, by the way, I really love Army Man. I've seen some of your old newsletter, Army Man, online, and I think it's really funny. And he was like, hey, do you have hard copies? And I was like, no, I've only ever seen scans. And he went into his garage and came back out with like a stack of comedy nerd treasures for me. And so now I have all those old Army Mans from the 80s with like Jack Handy and Bob Odenkirk. I've got all original copies of those.
That's amazing, man. I was saying, you mentioned Bob Odenkirk. Yeah, I wondered I was going to ask if you'd met George Meyer maybe through the Odenkirk connection, because he was an executive producer on the Birthday Boys.
Right. It was 2 totally separate worlds. I became friends with Bob because he saw me at UCB and we did shows together there. And then separately during the day, I'd be going into work and seeing Bill Odenkirk, working at The Simpsons, but I never really, and I introduced myself to Bill, and Bill's a really nice guy and stuff, but those worlds felt very separate to me because I was also ashamed of what a bad employee I was. And in my meetings with Bob, I was trying to convince him that I'm a hotshot writer, so I didn't talk about how I was pouring coffee all day. And they were like these two worlds that didn't really intersect.
It's always strange to hear someone having actually met John Swartzwelder, because I think there's only one picture of him online, and it's from maybe 1991 in a group of other writers. So it's always strange to know that he's real. His mustache is real. He was present somewhere.
That picture is why I recognize him. I know the exact picture you're talking about. And then I was like, that's the guy. Age him up 10, 12 years. And that's the guy.
And yeah, the George Meyer thing, I also think of him with Odenkirk, because like the way I knew how he looked was I was not only an obsessive of Simpson commentaries, but also the Mr. Show commentaries. And like on the first episode of it, Bob Odenkirk goes like, hey, there's George Meyer, one of the funniest writers in Hollywood. And he tells some story about when George was starting on Simpsons that he called like Bart Matt or Mark or something, and he's like, who cares what his name is? It's the boy says this line.
The boy. George Meyer was super nice, and I will say when I talked to him, a real like genius vibe, not just like, hey, I'm a goof around comedy guy, but just like everything he said was very sweet and nice and very smart, and I was like, oh, that I'm talking to a genius right now.
George Meyer, he was the first. I think we've already done a writer's corner.
Oh yeah,
because he's accredited in season 1.
He's this is his first solo script, but wasn't he on the Crepes of Wrath as one of 5 writers on that episode?
Yeah,
I thought so.
Which we found out later from interviewing John Vitti was like literally the draft was written together in the room, which is never how they write a Simpsons, but they did it that day. And I knew Meyer. He was the first Simpsons writer I actually like knew, because in the year 2000 he did a New Yorker profile that like my mom. He didn't do it. The New Yorker profiled him, and it was like my mom passed it along to me, and it was also one of those moments where I felt like, man, I'm so mature. My mom is passing me along a New Yorker profile. I'm a grown up now.
And he's actually credited with very few episodes, but he's very essential to the creation of the sense of humor in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they kind of say, I think I read that same New Yorker profile. It's kind of melancholy, but I think they kind of frame it as that he was so valuable as a joke writer that they needed him in the rewrite room so he doesn't have too many script credits, because you could send Schwartzwelder off to go write his own episode, but you always wanted to have George Meyer present for rewrites, and that's where he was most useful.
And I know in the Mike Scully years of 9 to 12 that like Meyer became basically co-showrunner with him, or at least like co-head writer in the room. I guess that New Yorker profile also is about how like his the tense family situation growing up, which this episode is entirely about that.
Yeah, wow, that's some James L. Brooks stuff, as they probably were pulling autobiographical things. I just remember from that, I think in that New Yorker piece, he says, George Meyer is like, if my tombstone says Simpsons writer, that's the saddest thing I can think of.
Oh man.
And to me, someone who looks up to him, I'm like, oh no, that makes you sad? Am I basing my life on the wrong thing?
That sounds more like a Harry Shearer quote to me.
Yes.
He would say Spinal Tap.
He'd say,
maybe it'd be Simpsons.
Creator of Le Show.
Oh, of course, the Gene Le Show.
Yeah, it would be jazz radio and stuff like that.
I guess, let's start from the beginning here, I guess, with this episode. So this episode is, when I saw it as a kid, I think it was the introduction to the idea that Thanksgiving could be stressful for people. Like I don't think I ever really, as a kid, got Thanksgiving until this episode. So I didn't get it until this one. And I don't think we had I can't remember a family big Thanksgiving fight until, let's say I was 15. I think there was one of those, but it took a while. But this one starts out with Marge, the visual of her pulling the guts out of a turkey and humming Green Sleeves. And this has a real like Shorts kind of feel to it, because it's just Maggie like silently walking around.
Yeah, there's a lot of just observational stuff with the family. It's a bit, it's not really high concept at this point.
And it also really feels, I do like Silverman, the director of this one. The opening is real clever, I think, because it follows Maggie two places. It's like Maggie looks at Marge, then she goes into the living room, then she follows Lisa upstairs.
Oh, that's
then
right,
she comes back down. They drop it after this first act, but it's I think it's a good framing device.
I like those kind of visual, chilled out passages. It really doesn't feel like anything we have on TV anymore, and I did get lulled into the tone of it, that there's like, well, you can really feel this is sparse, and like I'm enjoying the animation and actually thinking about it as a cartoon, as opposed to just like joke, plot. We know The Simpsons and we're barreling along. Like I felt like I was really lulled into the world. Even
2 years later, you'd never start an episode with Marge humming Green Sleeves for like 20 seconds.
Yeah.
But I love the feel of it, and then in another very like Shorts moment, it's just Bart and Lisa acting like actual children and arguing over something. And I mean, me and my brother, we fought over dumb things, but I didn't have the ability to explain it the way Lisa easily does, of just like, he only wants it because I want it.
What do you think in like the cultural context? I don't have many like real world memories of the first big splash of The Simpsons, where it's like Bart like don't have a cowman, and Bart Simpson is a t-shirt, and like he's an icon for being a little bad boy. And I guess that's what maybe season 1, that was like right off the bat, that was huge. So then when we get to an episode like this, where he's like, we meet him and he's like suffocating Lisa. It's not even like it's not a likable little stinker. He's kind of like a bad boy in this episode. And I wonder how people reconciled that, if they were conflicted about it, or if little stinkers were watching this being like, yeah, I'm going to choke my sister.
I think America had been introduced to Bart enough to realize, like, we watch Bart because Bart's a bad kid, but in these episodes, these early seasons, he would at least be remorseful, or even if he had to struggle to reach that point. But I think in the future, he would just be in league with Satan and cackling over his evil deeds.
Right. Yeah. But he has an arc here, and he has a conscience still. Yeah.
As a little boy, definitely I viewed Bart as the main character. I was like, I'm almost Bart's age. He's the main guy, and I agree with him. So even when he acts up here, probably 8-year-old me was thinking, well, Bart's right. His Lisa's trying to keep all the glue for herself. But this is a correct
Bart
reaction.
deserves some of that glue.
Bart should get on his skateboard and escape with the glue.
Say cowabunga and then jump. Yeah. There's also the joke of Maggie almost drinking glue. Again, it's like these dangers of Maggie, things happening to Maggie, very short.
Almost getting electrocuted.
And I also like that Homer, first he's like just the mean dad of trying to discipline him, but then he becomes just like a big kid watching the Macy's Day Parade. Like my mom growing up liked the Macy's Parade a lot, and I did too, but my dad never gave a crap about it.
I love when Homer likes something, especially when he's watching TV, but it's just it's the best thing ever to watch, like a dumb oaf watching something dumb and loving it. But I do just, the fact he got the first like big LOL they got out of me in this episode was when Bart's like, "What float is that?" And Homer's like, "It's Underdog. Don't you know anything?" Like, did that to Homer is knowledge? Like, if you're informed if you know who that cartoon character is.
This is not a problem for modern kids anymore because nothing ever goes away.
Yeah,
in fact,
right.
Bullwinkle and Underdog would come back within 10 years of this. And in fact, Bullwinkle came back again with a new series.
Oh yeah, there just was a new Bullwinkle show on Amazon, wasn't there?
And today they just announced a Velma prequel.
What?
Get ready for that on HBO Max.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, all right. The Homer joking about that is probably the same energy that got Hollywood producers to, by the end of the 90s, produce a live-action Rocky and Bullwinkle and Underdog film.
Yeah.
But who, when people thought of like, an Underdog film, did they imagine like an anthropomorphic dog voiced by Jason Lee? Like that's going to be the underdog?
Right. It's just like it was green lit, and then they had to figure out like, how do we actually make this movie now? We got the money.
But yeah, Transformers, He-Man, they never go away. It's just our culture must exist for the next generation forever. That's
We like words that we've heard before.
The Simpsons will be right back.
Thanksgiving is a time for delicious food
Cranberry sauce a la Bart.
and warm family gatherings.
Ding dong, here comes the cavalry.
Nothing can ruin this holiday at The Simpsons.
Homer, shouldn't you go pick up Grandpa?
Halftime, Marge, halftime.
Well, almost nothing.
All right, Bart, go to your room, now.
Okay, I'll take some white meat and stuffing to go and send up the pumpkin pie in about 20 minutes.
The Simpsons, Thursday at 8 on Fox 5.
Welcome to the break, everyone, and now I know how the Pilgrims felt. It's Henry Gilbert, and a big thank you to our guest this week, Tim Kalpakis. Me and Bob were so excited to have him on because we're big fans of his sketch show, The Birthday Boys, his band, The Sloppy Boys, and also his podcast, The Sloppy Boys. Please check out all of that stuff right now. And also, if you're a fan of the Talking Simpsons podcast, you should know that me and Bob do this as our full-time jobs because of support of listeners like you at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. This is a listener-supported show, and it's how me and Bob do it as our full-time jobs. And those $5 a month patrons at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons get so much for their support. They get to hear every episode of Talking Simpsons a week ahead of time and ad-free. You can hear next week's episode right now if you remember. And the same goes for our sister podcast, What a Cartoon, where each week me and Bob break down an animated series in the same style we do The Simpsons. So you should definitely check that one out too. Plus, you get access to a giant back catalog of podcasts exclusive to Patreon, over 100 of them. Do you like shows like The Critic, Futurama, King of the Hill, and Mission Hill? Well, you can only hear me and Bob talk about those shows in depth, Talking Simpsons style, if you're a $5 and up patron at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. Plus tons more. Hear them all. Sign up today. But if you want something even fancier than cranberry sauce a la Bart, then you should sign up at the $10 premium level at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. All that $5 bonuses I just talked about, you get those, but you also get, for $10 a month, the What a Cartoon movie podcast, the most in-depth, big-time podcast that me and Bob do each month. we cover an animated feature film as deep as we go into The Simpsons. That means talking about the history of the film, us going scene by scene over an entire film for up to 4 hours. Once even we went to 5 hours. You can hear us talk about this month the cult film Cool World. And the month before that, over 4 hours of chat about Shrek. It's Shrek's 20th anniversary, and we talked about the green ogre everyone remembers for over 4 hours. And there's a giant back catalog, with choices that range as wide from Kiki's Delivery Service to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse to Beavis and Butthead Do America and tons of others too. So please check that out today at the premium level at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. But yes, this is an interesting culture clash. Also, in this first clip here of Bart reacting to Bullwinkle.
Uh-oh, here comes our friend Bullwinkle J. Moose.
Bullwinkle's antlers sprung a leak.
Uh-oh, looks like old Bullwinkle's kind of got a taste of his own medicine.
He certainly did, Bill.
Wait, what did that mean? Did what I say make sense?
Well, no, not really, Bill.
Boy, now I know how the pilgrims felt.
What are you talking about, Bill?
Who the hell is that?
Bullwinkle.
Who? Wait a minute. Who's that?
Underdog, don't you know anything?
Well, I know it wouldn't hurt him to use some cartoons made in the last 50 years.
Don, this is a tradition. If you start building a balloon for every flash-in-the-pan cartoon character, you'll turn the parade into a farce.
And then you see the Bart balloon, which made its debut that morning.
Yep, 10 hours. I guess it would have probably been at like 10 a.m. or something. And so within 12 hours of this episode airing on the East Coast, the Macy's parade had shown that balloon.
That's amazing. What the planning for that too? Because don't these episodes take like 7 months to animate? That they had a deal for that and then planned it all out.
So I want to thank the Twitter account ThatGuy3002, Simpsons historian on Twitter, because he I think just buys old table read scripts and then notes all the differences on Twitter, and he did a great thread on this episode. And so yeah, we know thanks to his thread that the May 15th 1990 table read script had this joke in it. So they must have known then, like said 7 months ahead of time, that would be in the parade.
That's amazing. When I was watching this episode, I had to pause and go back because when Homer says a farce, and then the word farce sounded like Bart to me. And because I was looking at Bart and hearing the word that sounded like it, I thought he just said the whole parade turns into a Bart.
Well, farce is not a word that Homer should know.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. It is a little elevated for him.
That probably confused me as 8-year-old Zilliff, because I definitely didn't know what farce meant. I heard it as fart as a kid.
You're like, hey, that's a good joke.
I don't think I even got the joke with Bill and Marty as a kid, but it's one of the funniest jokes in the episode where they go back and evaluate their previous dull commentary.
Yes. They're noting each other and just, I like his statement, like, now I know how the pilgrims felt, which means he thinks pilgrims didn't know what the hell they were saying. I probably loved that joke, though, as a kid, because I would have diligently watched the Macy's parade that morning only to see the balloons, to see the Spider-Man balloon and then the Kermit balloon, and then here comes Bart. Like, yeah, I actually do have a clip if you'd like to hear.
Okay. Let's hear their commentary on this.
The inane commentary that one Willard Scott gave on the 1990 morning of Thanksgiving.
Walton Beach, Florida, thank you. Oh, wait, hold it. We're in big trouble. Look out, Mr. Producer. Stand by. Anything could happen. Don't have a cow. But here he is, that irreverent rebel. Debbie, I don't know if I can handle it by myself.
There he's here saluting, what is it, the underachievers of the world or something?
That's my group. Bart Simpson is one. Hey, man, he is one cool dude cruising down on his skateboard with his own band, consort escort, ay caramba.
Wow.
Perfect.
Boy.
Hey, man, he is one cool dude.
I love hearing Willard Scott like, "Hey, man."
Who was with Willard Scott?
I don't.
She was very dismissive of the underachievers thing. She said,
Yeah.
"All you underachievers," or whatever he does.
It must have been whoever the woman was, or one of the women hosting the Today Show. 'Cause
Okay.
it was
Katie Couric.
Yeah, maybe it was. That did sound like Katie
Okay.
Couric. Yeah, let's say it was her. But that was Willard Scott, just like him trying to act cool at knowing, like, I know who Bart Simpson
Man.
is. I'm cool, man. Bill Marty's inane commentary was better than Willard Scott's.
And I looked up online, was the Bullwinkle accident a reference to any other famous Macy's Day blimp accidents, or balloon accidents rather, but there are simply too many over the years.
Here's one of those, want to feel old math things.
Oh, God.
So the Bullwinkle balloon first appeared in 1961. It actually got retired in 83, so it wasn't even in the 90 parade. But Bullwinkle balloon was in 61. That was 29 years before this episode aired in 1990. It is now over 30 years since Bart's balloon premiered in 1990. So more time is in between that episode premiere and now than the Bullwinkle balloon was and then.
Wow.
I don't like that one bit.
I wonder if modern 10-year-olds know who Bart is.
I wonder. Yeah. Well, they'd know him from all the memes. They'd know him from like the chair smashing meme. It's Chair Smash Boy from the internet. I appreciated that joke that they worked that hard to get in a reference to. Also that is kind of them like both celebrating themselves and dunking on themselves. Like, yeah, we made it into the parade, but it's actually a sign that the parade is worse because Bart's in it now.
I think at this point, a lot of them thought this will just be a fad too.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be done with this show in maybe 2 or 3 years.
Yep. Yeah. So Maggie makes a dangerous walk upstairs past a bunch of like the house has never been messier, which like they're about to have company. They really should have cleaned up more. I love the little scene with Lisa and Maggie like decorating the centerpiece together. How much Lisa like cares about it, how important it is to her.
Taking that moment to, we wouldn't care like later on when it gets smashed or when she's sad and making Bart apologize. We wouldn't care so much if we hadn't had this moment with her and seeing how much how important it is to her. And that's another thing I wonder about with all these like comedy writers writing, a lot of very irreverent jokes in this episode. I also just really like picturing George Meyer scripting the scene where a little girl is proud of her centerpiece and is putting a lot of thought into it. And there's really like no jokes for a few seconds and it's just sweet.
And for Meyer too, that like he kind of snuck onto DV these very like urbane references of George O'Keeffe. I can't imagine any other sitcom in 1990 was making references to George O'Keeffe.
Oh, they all were. Every channel.
I think Marjorie Stoneman Douglas was a hero to him, and she's the only one I still had to look up for this recording.
Yeah, she was still alive then. Like she was 100 she was 100 when this episode aired, I believe.
She could have watched it.
I wonder if somebody passed it along to her. I also think George Meyer, when you find out that he's, not just a Harvard grad, but also like an Eagle Scout. I bet he made a lot of dioramas like these in his time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a sweet little scene of like, and also Lisa just commentating how unknown in 1990, like nobody celebrates any of these feminist icons back then, and she's like, yeah, it's a nice little commentary on the world too.
Yeah.
Then we get a little sequence of Bart trying to help. As a useless boy growing up who couldn't really help my mom with things, I appreciated these jokes too.
I think Mom, It's Broken should have been on Simpsons Sing the Blues.
Yeah.
An extended cut of that little song.
I love that song. I probably sang that song as well. And that's the instant kid thing too, to tell your parents like, this thing's broken. It's not my fault. It's broken.
And that little sketch he's doing there with the cranberry sauce is like, that's another example of it. It's a slightly different tone. It's kind of straightforward and it's very relatable. And like you're saying, as a kid, you'd be like, oh, I was like that. And it's this little moment that it feels for like a slightly broader, more earnest audience would relate to that and laugh at that. And it made me laugh, and it's very funny. But it's interesting for like the same show to deliver, the snarkiness of some of the parade jokes or whatever, and then to this sort of like very relatable joke about a little boy being no use. You can feel them like appealing. You're like, oh, this show is for everybody and everyone can laugh.
And it's just this long scene of like a mother talking to her son of just like, no, there. Okay.
Yeah.
And then here? Nope. Like it's that many like stage direction. Like again, they wouldn't. Also, the time they take to make you watch the cranberry sauce loop out of it, and great sound on it.
Yeah,
too.
great Foley on that.
Yeah.
So after Bart creates cranberry sauce a la Bart, he just leaves his mom to the rest of the work. And then we get Maggie then walks into the next room to start the next scene, and that's where we find out that Homer is it's their first football gambling joke in the show.
Yes, the room, by their own admission, was full of degenerate gamblers, and to make the day more exciting, they would gamble on things. I think because of the invention of smartphones, writers' rooms, there's less eating and gambling in them.
I'm curious, Tim, would you say that there's how has in writers' rooms, you've been in a few, like how have the iPhones dealt with like boredom in the writers' room at times?
I've always been in rooms where you're allowed to use your phones and you're allowed to get distracted, and then you just look like a jerk if you disappear into your phone. But a lot of rooms say phones off, we're gonna really work. But no, I feel I'm like always have like one eye on the internet and have drifted. And I think it would be nice though to be back in the Simpsons room in 1990 and actually working hard.
We heard from Bill Oakley, one of the showrunners and later be a writer after this, that people, when you join the Simpsons, you would gain 50 pounds because all you would do all day is graze because there were no other distractions. So you would just eat candy all day or eat snacks all day and look forward to lunch as your big treat. But now that you have smartphones, you have something else to do to give yourself like that endorphin rush.
Yeah, for sure. And I've definitely I love, it's so rude to peek at another writer's laptop or phone and see what they're doing. And, that is incredibly rude to put your eyes on someone else's screen. But I kind of do love stealing a little peek at another writer and just see what, I was at Comedy Bang Bang. I sat next to Nick Weiger and he had some slot machine app where he was just fake gambling all day and then was pitching brilliant ideas and pitching more than me, but he's like a high functioning guy, so it would just be he had 3 video games going but then also writing a script and also pitching jokes. Some people, it helps them, it just kind of keeps them awake.
Did you notice any football gambling still going on in your time there at Simpsons?
Yes. James L. Brooks had a weekly football pool that was a star-studded bunch of celebs, and I, every Monday morning, would drive an envelope up to a Beverly Hills mansion to give Adam Sandler $8,000 or something.
Oh my God. So wow. Jim Brooks was the ringleader.
Wow.
Jim, when I was there, Jim Brooks's assistant was totally running the whole show as far as the football pool. And yeah, it was all these, I want to say Josh Duhamel and just actors and cool people from showbiz were a part of it.
Wow. We've heard on other commentaries about how getting the envelope is the prized enough. I got the envelope, I won. Wow.
I think all of these gambling jokes would end when David Merkin took over in seasons 5 and 6, but everything you see from 1 to 4 is based on them being in the writer's room trying to make their days more interesting.
I love another one where Mike Reese just shits all over the gambling because he doesn't care about this football. He's like, you guys and your football gambling, who gives a shit? But yes, Homer wants the Dallas Cowboys to lose. In reality, on that day, the Cowboys beat the Washington football team 27-17. So Homer lost that bet.
The spread too is something I still kind of don't get. They're his favorite team, so he wants them to lose by 5.5 points. So I guess he bet on them to lose by that margin. That was what his bet was, and it was a high bet, I guess, or it paid back a lot.
I guess so. Yeah.
I guess that's how it works. People will yell at us in the comments.
I watched that film Uncut Gems, and I still don't really understand the all of those side bets and prop bet stuff.
I'm not a gambler, and I've never been a part of any of this stuff because I'm also just winning money is kind of cool, but losing money hurts me way more than winning. The good feeling of winning doesn't equal the harshness of losing money. So I've never placed even $1 on a sporting event.
I forgot to mention earlier we saw Bill and Marty on screen for the first time. It's
right.
Not their first appearance, but it is their first time on screen. And I also like that these announcers too are just kind of sick of each other as well. They're just get on with it. That's what it's. I think Meyer also says on the commentary that he recognizes this script is one of the angrier ones, and he says that's why he started going to therapy not long after this script.
I did feel I loved and I laughed out loud at the harshness of this joke here when a player gets hurt and it's like, ooh, looks like he'll be eating Thanksgiving dinner through a tube. Just like to toss that off as light convo. It's such a violent thought. I love it.
And the other guys just try. Actually, it feels, now that we're discussing it, it actually feels like a mocking of the writer's room, because that guy throws out a joke and then the other guy is like, hope they can fit a turkey in there, and he's like, shut up. Like he's dumping on the guy trying to add on to his joke.
Lots of announcer humor in this episode.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so Homer is diligently watching Marge. I like Homer's delivery too on when Marge asks him to go pick up Grandpa, and he's like, halftime, Marge, halftime. But yes, Patty and Selma arrive, and I note this scene because it's like the first time Patty and Selma have ever been mean to Marge. They've always, up to this point, they're rude to Homer, but they're supportive of Marge just leaving Homer. It's not like they say, Marge, you're great, but they do say, you're too good for Homer. But this time when they arrive with their own meals, like that is them negging Marge. Like they're telling Marge, you suck.
I think it's because Mom is going to be there.
Oh,
and that changes the dynamic. That's just my own headcanon, I guess.
I like that. And me and Bob were talking about this beforehand, but before recording, but it's such a 70s, like this is about a 70s Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah. Patty and Selma's dishes are 70s party food dishes. Swedish meatballs.
Oh, Swedish meatballs. That's such a classic Betty Crocker type of thing.
And like trout almondine, which is just like, well, it's just like a pan-fried fish. Like it's a very fancy. I looked up the recipe. I was like, I've made this before, just with different sauces. But yeah, I love how hurt Marge is. She's like, you knew I was making the turkey. But Homer then walks by them and heads on his way out. I love this exchange for him. Like, this is a different dynamic with Homer and the twins still here, because this is them being lightly nice to each other's faces and then instantly complaining about them away. But soon enough, they would just be Homer they just became a more normal sitcom thing of yelling insults at each other to their face.
Yeah, just insincerity up front and then the backstabbing when they leave.
I love Homer's version of their voices in the car. It's so subtle where he's just kind of like, he doesn't fully do an impression of them. It's just sort of this half grumble.
Dan does such a good job there. Yeah, actually, I have that clip right here as Homer goes on a drive and enjoys listening to the halftime show.
Well, it's good to see you. Well, gotta pick up my old man. Bye.
So insincere. I don't know how she puts up with him.
And now, get set for our fabulous halftime show, featuring the well-groomed young go-getters of Hooray for Everything.
Oh, I love those kids. They've got such a great attitude.
Ladies and gentlemen, Hooray for Everything invites you to join them in a salute to the greatest hemisphere on Earth, the Western Hemisphere, the dancingest hemisphere of all.
I just wanted to hear all that song.
I think you're starting to like it.
Yeah, it's so great. It's so funny that that Homer is a fan of Hooray for Everything, and that like him getting into it. When it cuts to the outside of the car and he's flashing his lights, and I feel like they did that later with him being like USA, USA or something. But just like the idea that Homer expresses his happiness with his car lights.
This is the Homer that is slightly out of date, the early Homer where he likes Mambo. He's not the Homer that grew up with classic rock of the 70s quite yet. So he is the 70s or 60s dad who enjoys the wholesome kids as the alternative to rock and roll. But Henry did a ton of research on Up With People, which is what this is a parody of. This reference is lost to time, but Henry, please, a lot of great information about this.
Yeah, so since they make fun of Up With People so many times because like they're a specific target of George Meyer, and I understand why they're a wonderful target. Plus, he even says on the commentary like his sister Nancy was a member of Up With People for a time, and that's a different sister than the one that married John Beatty. But so this, I learned all about this finally from watching a documentary that's just on Vimeo called Smile Till It Hurts, about the Up With People group. Like, it is a Christian cult, or was. Wow. That was created. Its roots are in the 1950s anti-communist movement. Like, it was a Red Scare group, and their aim basically was co-opt youthful sentiments of like revolution and counterculture and all that, take those and then say you're doing it for America and America's great and we're the young people who want to set America straight. And you have these clean cut people. They also are a very white organization, but the few diverse people they had in there, they put them right in the front row and they'd say how everything's fine, it's great, hooray. Like, and they were for years they were supported by every evil Republican of the 50s to 70s, giving them millions and millions of dollars. They were basically like the Koch brother stuff that happens today. That was Up With People back then, and that also included the guy who ran the NFL then in the 70s and 80s. He was a big believer in Up With People being this like anti-hippie, progressive movement, and he would give them the Super Bowl halftime shows. Like, they did 5 different Super Bowl halftime shows.
Okay, I didn't know this.
From 10 to 20, and by 20 they got made fun of so much that which was 1986. That one, they were mocked so much that the NFL finally went like, we have to have something hipper than this. Like, we can't keep having Up With People.
Man, I didn't know. I'm not a huge NFL guy, and I didn't really know that the Super Bowl halftime show wasn't always Earth's biggest pop star. It's so quaint to think of it being this like silly little Christian group at the Super Bowl.
It sounded cult-like too, where these people had to, like, if you were a member of it, one, you paid them to be in it. They didn't pay you, and also like, they told stories of like, well, I lost my job as lead singer because I married somebody without the boss's approval of who I chose to marry. Like,
oh boy.
Yeah. And there's a very funny person in the documentary who, very entertaining. He was a member in 1980 who, he was a closeted gay man. And he mentions that like, every guy there was a closeted gay man pretty much, because it was a Christian group where young men went to sing and wear colorful outfits. But yeah, if you want to see some of the real corniness that this is mocking, look up the Super Bowl 10 halftime show, and you'll see them talking about celebrating the Western Hemisphere. Like, it's not that far from the reality of
that feels insidious. And one thing I want to point out is whenever you hear a non-Simpsons voice actor in a non-guest role, it always stands out to me. So that radio announcer, not a regular, you'll hear him a few more times in this episode. That is Greg Berg, and I want to say that he was used to fill in for Hank Azaria when he wasn't available. So he would do the temp track for things, but then perhaps Hank Azaria didn't show up, or he wasn't available, or he was sick. So you'll hear him as an announcer, you'll hear him as the second homeless man with Dan Castellaneta, and you'll hear him playing Lou with his voice coming out of Eddie in the third act.
You're right. Hank Azaria, I don't think he talks at all in this
He doesn't.
one.
He is not in this episode. So I know. So that is Greg Berg, by the way, doing these voices. He will be appearing throughout season 2. He comes back in season 8. I think he is just, his voice is on the temp track. We couldn't get whoever does this voice, so Greg Berg can do it. He also is the stand-in for Kelsey Grammer at Table Reads for Sideshow Bob episodes. So previously I said it was Greg Berger. It's actually Greg Berg. They're both voice actors.
Yeah, they're both Saturday morning, legends. Like,
yeah.
Greg Berg is the original Donatello.
And Baby Fozzie on Muppet Babies, the original Baby Fozzie. So there you have it. You'll hear him a few times, but yeah, you're so used to the flavor of the core 6 voices that when a new one enters the mix, you're like, who is this? What are you doing? Where is Hank Azaria? Not in this episode.
I like Greg Berg's voice a lot. Like, they could have kept using him just as he's not, Hank Azaria is like a comedy genius and a great voice actor. I wouldn't say Greg Berg's better than him, but to switch up the voice is, like, it's nice.
Yeah, and I assume this was like during his earlier years in Hollywood. He was probably doing a lot of pilots. He might have been, researching the role for Herman's Head he would appear on in a few years.
Yeah, I think he did years and years of research for that.
Yes. That character, what was his name again? Steve? I don't know. The horny guy.
Right, man. What would you call? I'd guess like Steve or like Tom. That would probably be the horny friend, the funny friend in a 90s sitcom. Well, I think it is funny to think for a time that Hank Azaria, like, I think he viewed, I've seen him say this in interviews, I think at the time he viewed Simpsons as like, well, this is a nice little thing I do, but soon I'm going to be the star of a sitcom and I'll have no time for the Simpsons. Like he
was in fierce competition with Matthew Perry for a lot of his earlier years, right?
Yeah, like Matthew Perry was his best friend and they thought they'd be on Friends together. And not getting it. He talked, I think it was his WTF interview. He was talked about that it was hard for him for a while to deal with the fact that his best friend was Matt Perry and his girlfriend and then wife was
Helen
Hunt, and they both are becoming giant stars, and he was feeling inadequate to them. He said he's doing much better now, but and he was very nice to us. I don't know if you've ever met Hank Azaria, Tim.
No, I watched him in records and marveled, but I never got to talk to him. He felt like one of those guys who was, when I was there, he was definitely like busy. Like sometimes he'd be over the phone or sometimes he'd be like coming from another job, but he was definitely a mover and a shaker.
But man, the Greg Berg, he's still, I'm surprised, he's still at it. He voices a Ninja Turtle every now and then when there's like a reunion thing. It's great. Sorry, there was one last thing I wanted to say about Up With People, which is that Glenn Close was a member of it, like in the 50s or 60s. It's in that documentary. I showed it to Bob.
Yeah.
In the documentary, they have footage of her, like, it's Glenn Close from Greenwich, Connecticut, and just her saying, I'm in Up With People because it'll help America or whatever. She said something very milquetoast. Apparently she is not a fan of people remembering that.
No.
But yes, that Hooray for Everything will appear more than once in the series, but this is their first one. And also that song Get Dancin' by Discotheques and the Sexolettes. That's the name of the song. It's a disco classic. I will actually be talking about it soon enough in a season 12 episode. Because, yes, in the Praise Land episode, Disco Stu gets his vision of heaven, and when he goes to heaven, I didn't know, I had forgotten that bit too. I had to look it up. It's Simpsons is the main bit of information on the wiki page for Get Dancing.
That is true. It's a big paragraph on there.
That's amazing because I do feel like I definitely recognized the song and was like, oh, is this some big hit? But yeah, it's a good song. I like it.
And Homer, he picks up Abe. There's some funny signs, thank you for not discussing the outside world. I like that sign gag. And it is just an incredibly sad and depressing retirement home. I
like the sick coughing in the background.
Oh, yeah.
This was definitely felt like the other harshest moment of like people faxing in their well wishes to people and just being like, that must have shocked people in 1990 to watch this episode and be like, ouch, we are laughing at what it's like to be in a retirement home.
These poor people who the extra sadness of it, that woman who's like in tears that she's like, I knew they wouldn't forget. Like that's how low the bar is for like the fax makes her cry in a positive way.
And Homer,
that's how starved she is for any attention from her family.
And Homer just shouting in front of all these people, this is depressing. I can't be here anymore.
This place is depressing. I love that. Then we get another first for the episode. Now, she had appeared in a dream sequence flashback that Marge had in Moaning Lisa.
Right, but it was just her legs or something, right?
You do see her face, but it's just they drew Marge's face with different hair.
You're right, yeah.
But this is the non-dream first appearance of Marge's mother, who I still don't think has a name other than Mrs. Bouvier.
Oh, Jackie.
Oh, okay.
She's named after Kennedy's wife when he was killed.
They went all the way with it.
Yeah.
Because I remember in the episode where she dates Abe that he just calls her Mrs. Bouvier the entire time.
I think they might have forgotten her name, but yeah, named after President Kennedy's widow, later Jackie Onassis. Her maiden name is Bouvier, and she's rarely seen, and when she does, she rarely speaks. So she's only made speaking appearances in 4 episodes since Fear of Flying. If you remember in Fear of Flying, it was the flashback of Marge seeing that her father was a flight attendant.
Yes.
And her mom was in a few of those flashbacks.
The mom is a very James Brooks character too. Like this, they don't explore the jokes in this episode about Marge's relationship with her mom. Seems to tell you that Marge has a very withholding mother who has never given her a compliment, and Marge has always tried to be good enough for her. Like that's what's implied in her first line of telling her, like, you never do anything right. But they kind of drop that for pretty much all their other interactions.
Yeah, I don't really know that it really feels totally right for Marge. When I think of the character, she doesn't have that thing. You know, like people who are raised by withholding parents tend to then like need to prove so much of the world, and then they're really driven or something like that. And I always just think of Marge as kind of a content homemaker. So it doesn't totally ring true. I don't know.
I guess her one joke gimmick would be, I have laryngitis, so I'll just say this one thing, and always just a super negative thing. But I don't know how long that joke. Yeah, I don't know how long that joke could have carried. Multiple appearances, and I don't think Julie Kavner liked doing the voice.
I mean, it's such an extreme voice. Here, actually, I've got her first line here.
Mom, you made it. How are you? I have laryngitis, and it hurts to talk. So I'll just say one thing. You never do anything right.
That's, yeah. I guess the joke, maybe they even made it a joke that how much she hates to do that voice is that they make it a hard voice to talk.
I think also from a writing perspective, characters that speak slowly, they really fill up a page. They really fill up your time there. So it's hard to have a lot of dialogue with this character.
There's a lot of ellipses on the page.
I do like the joke that she, just as a way to show her character very early, the taxi arrives and the guy is helping her out, and she takes the long way around to refuse help from someone.
Okay.
It's a good little character thing. All these characteristics that definitely feel like stuff like straight out of Terms of Endearment, honestly.
Yeah.
Like this kind of mother-daughter interaction that they don't really spend any time on with her. I mean, they're not that interested in Marge's background too often in the show. Like for years they joked that they'd say how her father died, and it was I think it was like in the 20s seasons that they finally said it was from lung cancer.
Right. Yeah. I guess in one of the comic books or something, they joked that he died on a roller coaster or something like that.
Yeah. That was, I remember that. It was in Simpsons Illustrated. They have, like Lisa says, ever since Grandpa's untimely roller coaster accident, that was them like workshopping jokes that were in the writer's room that then wouldn't make it into an actual script.
I remember when I worked at Gracie Films, there's always these needs for Simpsons related things, whether it's books or, a commercial. And when I was there, the big thing was the ride, the Universal Studios Simpsons ride was being written. And it was interesting to see that they did usually get real writers to head up those projects. And it would be this separate thing through Gracie Films, but they would make sure to get some of the writers involved. And it was almost sort of like a weird little pet project where it's like, because they didn't want to, if it was books or whatever, they didn't want to have it be a voice outside of the show, but it wasn't worth like bothering the showrunner for. So a lot of those books and things, I saw them kind of come and go with maybe one writer would be shepherding them.
Yeah, you made me just think that when you were there, they were working on the show, the movie, the ride, and probably the video game too, because that had writers on it as well.
Yeah, and I saw there were little breakout rooms for it all. And I mean, it's crazy because those are all huge projects on their own, but it would just be sort of, a series of meetings that were tagged on to the end of the day for a little breakout room of writers to go. The crazy thing is so much of that stuff, video games and rides require so much writing that not even everybody sees. Like video games, you write a lot of things that the player might not get to, or on a ride you have to put all these different jokes on different screens. So they had to crank out so many alternate jokes for every single thing. I don't know how you balance that with making a TV show at the same time.
Man, you were there at like what had to be the busiest year the show ever had.
And it really was. It's like a big explosion, but I want to say like maybe there was a little bit of cynicism in the air because of that. Like, and maybe that's what I picked up on is sort of just like, here we go. We're doing all this shit and and it's a lot of stuff and we're cashing in. So like it felt very busy, but I didn't get the sense of like everyone being very excited about all those projects, but that they were happening.
Did you get to go to the opening of the ride?
I did, and I loved the ride,
wow.
and I was I'm a huge Back to the Future fan, but I never got to ride the ride when it was Back to the Future.
Oh no!
So it was a nice fresh take for me. A lot of people around me were kind of couldn't help but compare and contrast it with Back to the Future. But I liked it.
Yeah, for me and Bob, we're also both big Back to the Future fans. We had ridden that ride. I missed that ride, and I'm very sad that for a Simpsons ride to exist, a Back to the Future ride had to go away. Like I wish they could coexist.
They couldn't bulldoze the Waterworld section of Universal.
That's still, well, not in the last year, but that was still one of their biggest things. Like people, no one gives a shit about Waterworld, but they love that stunt show.
I think we'll see some cuts soon.
But yeah, so we come back to the home. Maggie is watching the halftime show as Homer comes back with Abe. There is a quick joke about the Pontiac Silverdome, which in the time between us doing this the first time, it has been fully demolished.
Oh, wow.
The games had stopped there, but it's been demolished. And I know it, of course, as the home of WrestleMania 3 in 1987.
Is that the Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan fight?
That is,
wow,
yes.
How did I know that?
It's the biggest WrestleMania of all time.
That's why I know it.
Yeah. And yeah, again, we talk about the slow pacing and no jokes. Like Marge just walks through a room and walks back out of it.
And I guess there's jokes with the announcer talking about how the flash photography won't work in the stadium. Is that basically just what's happening in the background?
So. Yeah, that's all it is.
Yeah. It feels like it was added after the fact, just because there was nothing happening.
But nobody seems to care. Yeah. It's time for dinner, and Lisa has her centerpiece in this next clip.
Dinner! Dinner time, everybody! Dinner!
The hell with it!
Okay, Lisa, we're ready for your centerpiece. Lisa, my goodness, that's very impressive.
Holy moly, that's the biggest one of those I ever saw.
I always said she was gifted. Definitely from our side of the family, right, Mom? Leave me alone. How long did that take you, honey?
I couldn't tell you how many hours. It was a labor of love. It's my homage to some American heroes who may not have fought in any wars, but who nevertheless...
Speaking of heroes, here's mine. Tom Turkey.
First off, I want to say the way Homer says, to hell with this. Like, I think I've said it in that tone many times in my life. Anytime I'm fed up with doing something, I say it the way Homer says it.
Did you guys, the specific of centerpieces in your homes growing up on Thanksgiving, was there like a cornucopia or something in the middle of the table? Because I don't think my family ever made a big deal out of a centerpiece.
No, at best there would have already been plastic flowers on the table or something at my grandma's. There was no special Thanksgiving centerpiece.
Right.
Well, it was rare my family did an extended family Thanksgiving anyway, but also I had my close friend in high school. He did have a big extended family that all lived there and in the same town. So they'd have a big meal every Thanksgiving, like 40 people in the house kind of thing. But yeah, they never really did a centerpiece either, actually. I also like the bit that like Marge and Homer, they're really stressed out because their parents are treating them like children too. Like Marge is already being put back into her place as a kid with her mom being very withholding, and here's Homer trying to do something and all his father can do is tell him like, you're doing that wrong. It's I definitely think Meyer's making a statement about like, well, Thanksgiving sucks because everybody is treated horribly in it, and
you can never escape your trauma.
It's generational trauma passed down next to each other all day.
And it probably still in 1990 is still kind of novel to just see a Thanksgiving that wasn't perfect. Because I guess we had like National Lampoon movies and stuff like that in the 80s, but for the most part, I feel like a lot of TV through the 80s would have still been like Thanksgiving is this wonderful sacred thing, and then it's sort of like Simpsons and Married with Children are the first time people are like seeing dysfunctional families, and it's like, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing it.
It did kick off with two very depressing holiday episodes, Christmas and this.
Yes.
Just very dark things happen on the wrong side of the tracks.
I also love Marge's mom going like, leave me alone. Like and I never recognized Lisa using the word. I thought it was, I've heard it pronounced homage, but she says homage. But
either way's fine.
Now that's just, now it's just a comedy term of just saying like, no, I'm not stealing. It's an homage. Like, But and Bart, actually, in an homage to the 20th Century Fox, he's doing the fanfare as he presents the turkey.
I love that. That was a good little wink.
And yes, this is when all hell breaks loose and Bart ruins Thanksgiving in this next clip.
Yikes! What is that? It's the centerpiece, Bart. Well, it's taking up valuable real estate. Hey, Bart, stop it! Move it or lose it, Toots. Mom! Now, just a minute. I'm sure there's room for both. Bart, you're wrecking it! Let's go! I worked forever on this!
Hey, that got her going.
Bitchin'. You don't even care! You don't even care!
All right, Bart, that's it. Go to your room, now.
Okay, I'll take some white meat and stuffing to go and send up the pumpkin pie in about 20 minutes.
I said now!
Mom, do I have to?
Yes, you do. I hope you're happy, Bart. You ruined Thanksgiving.
There's the line for the commercial.
Great act break. Oh boy, that is such an amazing scream from Yardley Smith. I played it back twice when I was watching this for the show for the research. It's a incredible scream.
Yeah. That line, you don't even care. You don't even care. That really gets me because it's like, I feel like the way most people would write this scene or just a lesser TV show would be like, she's just mad about her centerpiece. But I love, like, Lisa's smart enough that, like, she's so... That's what gets her the most, is that her brother, who she loves, doesn't even care that he made her sad, and that's what hurts her. And it's like, oof, that's a real, that line really cuts me. I can't believe that's coming from just like a wacky little cartoon.
Yeah, Lisa Yardley, when she's given a real emotion to play, she's so good at it with Lisa, just her scream of agony. And yeah, that you don't even care, like that. It says so much. Like she's angry, but she's also being introspective, like the total opposite of Bart, who he does a bad thing and his instant reaction to it is like, what did I do? I actually did a good thing. Like he is in complete denial while Lisa is already turning it inward, her anger.
Yeah, he's all surface, and then she so quickly is thinking about her relationship with her brother is the problem. It's awful.
And the lighting too, like the green light that comes out of it, and the shot of Lisa as she screams, like it's like that could be on a poster. I love that shot. Like, and Bart's reaction to it saying "bitchin'." Apparently, that was a fight with the network to get them to be allowed to have Bart say "bitchin'."
He said "bitchin" previously this season when during the Halloween episode when Homer summoned the aliens by putting too much lighter fluid on the fire, right?
Yeah, you know what? Maybe they're remembering that previous bitchin' fight, and then after winning that one, they're like, we're going to say it in Thanksgiving, too.
Bart says bitchin' when he sees fire now.
It taught me that phrase as a kid. I didn't know. I don't know if that's an okay word, if that has more negative connotations now, even because, it's bitch, but
it's positive.
Yeah, it means it's a good thing.
We should bring that back. I like bitchin'. It's like a fun, it seems so harmless.
And yeah, so goes to commercial break with Bart ruining Thanksgiving. It comes back. There's smoke coming out of the chimney because the centerpiece was burned. Homer then gives an early runner in these times. I think it's still stuck around, of Homer starting a prayer that ends with him just sobbing to God and hating his family.
Him talking directly to God and gossiping with God would continue through the series, for sure.
Yeah. Like in season 12, he has a prayer wondering how many guys Maude is fucking in heaven.
Yes. That many, huh?
Well, here's a line I always misheard when I'll play it really quickly here, but what Selma says, it never sounds like what she says to me.
And Lord, we're especially thankful for nuclear power, the cleanest, safest energy source there is, except for solar, which is just a pipe dream. Anyway, we'd like to thank you for the occasional moments of peace and love our families experience. Well, not today. Well, you saw what happened. Oh, Lord, be honest. Are we the most pathetic family in the universe or what? Amen.
Worst prayer yet.
So I always heard that as her saying, "Where's Prairieette?"
What did you think that meant?
I assumed that there was that it was a reference to some character in a book I'd never heard of called Prairieette, and she's saying, "Where's Prairieette?" And that was like her nickname for Lisa. That was how I always, until Frinkiac, and I could see that it said, because I never put on the closed captions for this or the subtitles, I always thought it was "Where's Prairieette," not "Worst Prayer Yet."
That was on my Lisa t-shirt. Where's Prairieette? Wait, season 1 had "Where's That Bart?" And this episode has "Where's Prairieette?" Okay, I like it. Sorry, Tim.
It's such a kid thing to just accept words that make no sense to you. Like, I think about that with so many song lyrics and movie lines and stuff, is like, when you're a kid, you are very accustomed to hearing things that make no sense to you. So you're just like, okay, where's Prairieette? I guess that's what she said. And as an adult, you'd be like, no, if I don't understand words, I must be hearing them wrong.
In your 20s, I think, is when you shed a lot of those things where you just repeat a thing or like a lie your parents told you as a kid. And as you're telling it to friends in your 20s, you then go like, wait, no, that's a lie. No.
Why am I saying this?
And then as she says, "Worst Prairieette," I love the shot of them looking at the ceiling as hearing Lisa playing her sax, sadly. It's also like, these are scenes they rarely do too, of just Marge and Lisa interacting and her comforting her, and this very sad thing of like, Lisa's like new to being disappointed while Marge is like kind of hardened to it. Like, she says like, things like this always happen in our family. I've noticed that too. Like, Marge is she's seen it all at this point, sadly. I like Marge comforting her, and it also, Lisa doesn't even demand an apology from Bart. It's Marge who wants it, which she should. Like, Bart was bad. It's only his fault, and he did that in that particular moment, made Thanksgiving worse. Like, could you say he ruined Thanksgiving? I don't know, but he made it worse at that moment.
I think so.
I definitely, I identify as a kid who was like a little stinker. Yeah. I love that in that moment, Bart isn't just being like cruel to be cruel. It's like, it's about attention, and he's like, look at the turkey, and I am saving the day. And it's just like, in that moment, he wasn't trying to be awful, but it was just about like, I'm the funny one. And I did, even watching it at 37, I did like, made my cheeks a little red, just being like, oh, I'm kind of like that.
No, yeah, I grew up, I was 8 then, my brother was 6, and I can see it now as us getting in fights about this. Like, my job is to present the turkey, and now my brother is taking attention from me again by having if he had the centerpiece and I had the turkey, I would have had Bart's reaction of like, this is taking attention away from me, the star of this, with the turkey.
I'm the protagonist of this family.
Yeah.
It's so funny that you're showboating just for your family. It's like, it's not like your cool friends around. It's just like, I wanted to get attention from mom and dad while I put this turkey on the table.
Ooh, this really played well with mom.
Yeah, I'm killing with mom.
But Bart won't apologize in this next clip.
Bart, you can come down to dinner as soon as you're ready to apologize to your sister. And it's going to be a real apology in front of everybody, and you have to mean it.
Apologize for what? Clearing the table? Having a sense of humor? They think they can starve an apology out of me? Ha!
Again, from a selfish little kid perspective, that is a very understandable reaction to being told to apologize.
But I've also seen adults act like this, because a lot of this is about Bart learning what empathy is and how to have it. And people that don't learn that, who I've dealt with in life, where if they'll do something hurtful to you, you'll point that out, and now it's suddenly about you're being mean to them by pointing it out. It's a real childish thing that Bart does, but adults do it all the time. It's an easy trick.
They didn't learn the lesson at the end of this episode.
No.
They start with the Bart lesson in the middle, like, yeah, everybody keeps asking him to apologize. Enough is enough. But yeah, I also do like the design on, they kind of dropped this too of like Bart's messy room and all the toys in the hallway, like that.
It's a lot of things to draw, I think.
Yes, yeah, that's true. It at least makes it easier on them. But yes, just like in the Telltale Head episode, Bart escapes through his window and runs away down the tree. And they also bring in Santa's Little Helper, connecting it to their other holiday episode of the Xmas one. So it's I like them fighting over the turkey leg together too. That's cute. But yes, Bart runs off and very quickly ends up at Mr. Burns' home. which is on the corner of Croesus and Mammon. They're biblical references to greed. I know that much. But yes, I love the design. Cartoon food looks so tasty to me.
It's true. And they were very Burns obsessed in this era, so they had to find a way to work Mr. Burns into this family-focused episode. And it works. I think it works.
Bart walks by Burns' house. What's Burns up to on Thanksgiving Day? I mean, also just Burns eating 5 bites of it. I do like Myers talking about like just this wastefulness of a rich guy who lives in a mansion and has a Thanksgiving meal just for himself, won't share it with anyone, and throws it all away.
He's still not cruel enough to Smithers, though. He actually compliments Smithers on his food.
You know what? You're right. He should,
despite throwing most of it away.
That's right. He tells him he outstrips yourself in succulence, which is funny words. But yeah, you know, by the end of this season, he'd be saying coffee's too hot and throwing it in Smithers' face.
I was surprised. Because I haven't revisited the very early seasons in a long time, I feel like I've just heard a lot that like, oh, when Conan got there, he really started to give Mr. Burns a lot of the old timiness, and that's when Mr. Burns really started to take shape with his funny references. So even just that, the use of the word succulence there and stuff, I was like, oh, that's very Burnsy and a funny word choice that I didn't really realize that they were writing his voice that clearly already by season 2.
Yeah, you know, on the Conan thing, I see it now. We all heard the stories of like Conan, he's the secret sauce of all these seasons, and I think Conan was one of the best writers they ever had, but he was more like he was jumping on the moving train and helping it go faster, I guess.
And he was
for a very bad metaphor I did.
He was there for 18 months too, as well.
Yeah.
There's actually
it's just too much fun to just take a famous guy and be like, oh, he's their secret weapon, when it's like, no, he's a smart, funny guy who saw what these other geniuses were doing and was able to shovel some coal into the engine.
Yeah.
It was in my mind, so I looked it up. There's a much different scene in The Trouble with Trillions in season 9 where Smithers does make Burns food, and he just says, I hope you enjoy it, sir. And Burns gets mad that he's looking for a compliment. He's like, I'm choking it down. Isn't that enough?
That's right.
And then Smithers says, I don't know why I even bother.
I love that.
So he would get much meaner to Smithers in the future.
You know, all the urbane references to Les Mis and all that I did not get as a kid, but even as a kid I could laugh at the sadness of Burns having. I could notice the joke is that Burns has all of this food and he won't share it with his guards who are eating TV dinners while working on Thanksgiving Day. Like,
do we know, is there like a specific Burns? I know that like we'll eventually have Burns reference Howard Hughes or Hearst or Citizen Kane and stuff like that. But did they ever say like, is there a specific grumpy old lonely billionaire that they originally based Burns on?
Well, I've said it before on here, but I do know to a degree in seasons 1 and 2 especially, Burns was inspired by Barry Diller, the then owner of the Fox network, or the president of it, who was a cantankerous old man who, though he's gay and Burns is not gay, though I think that might also be where the Smithers jokes come from as well, I think. So, yeah.
I thought in terms of attitude, he was very much based on Mr. Potter from It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh, yeah.
I see that for sure, yeah.
And also, well, speaking of the Burns and Smithers relationship, when you see these guards here, it reminds me of like, by the end of season 2, everyone else who could do a job for Mr. Burns all just disappear and Smithers does everything.
He would inherit all of these jobs.
Like, there's no security guards. If they need to hire goons, Burns will hire goons because Smithers can't like physically assault someone. But other than that, Smithers, if someone's going to release the hounds, it's Smithers doing it, not a bunch of the guards at base command here.
I love that. It is so funny that a billionaire still just has a staff of 1.
It is still cooling a pie on a windowsill.
Yes.
Technology has not improved.
And also when they spot Bart, I love that there's this beautiful statue that just has a giant gaudy surveillance camera right on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, the hounds are released. That had happened before in the series, but we never saw the hounds before. So this is the first time on screen we've seen the hounds of Burns. And a great action scene. The shot, I love the background of the dogs as they're running and hit that Bart.
It's very anime. I wonder if it's anime inspired. Just the abstract background as they're rushing towards him.
Is the line "release the hounds"? That also feels that must be a reference to something very specific, right? Is that just something old timey people said, or what? There must have been some guy that released hounds in an old movie or something.
And, I can't think of a specific. It does seem like a thing like Ebenezer Scrooge would do or whatever. But I can't. I think it was. My guess is that it just came from like in the No Disgrace Like Home episode. They just wanted to end a scene with Burns saying, "If you don't leave now, or I'll release the hounds." And from there, they're like, "Oh, him saying release the hounds is really funny." Like on the Simpsons Sing the Blues album, his song is about releasing the hounds on people.
It is a very fun expression, I agree.
To the point where the hounds will be an important plot element in season 3 episode where Burns adopts Santa's little helper to be one of those hounds.
He does. He becomes a hound.
But yes, Bart escapes through the hedge wall narrowly. Burns very happily is going to murder a child on Thanksgiving Day too. I like that in another show he'd be like, "Oh, this poor child wants food on Thanksgiving," but here it's like, kill him.
And he warms the billionaire's heart.
Then meanwhile, Lisa has her own version of Howl, the Allen Ginsberg poem, in this next quick clip.
I saw the best meals of my generation destroyed by the madness of my brother. My soul carved in slices by spiky-haired demons.
I do like the show sympathy for Lisa, but they also point out she's being a little extra, because she's writing a poem about her pain, and then she later recites it to the family.
That's true.
It's a bit irritating.
Right. She is going too far with it, even though she was wronged. And I was thinking, just referencing Howl and Allen Ginsberg, like I recognized the line and I was like, where's that from? And I had to Google it to place it. And I love just putting that out there, knowing that a lot of people are not going to get that reference, but just knowing for the people that do, that it places Lisa in such like a literate crowd that is so fun.
At the height of Bart mania, when their primary audience is children, they put in a reference to gay beat poet, and Meyer says that he had heard from a friend of Allen Ginsberg that he was tickled at this reference on The Simpsons to his poem, which that's very sweet. And also back then they stuck in all these jokes behind Lisa, including her End Apartheid Now South Africa poster, which was I think by the end of season 2 apartheid had ended, or maybe season 3
around that. It was put in by Matt Groening at his insistence to have the political message in the show.
I like that. And also, though, speaking of how like long scenes, Lisa's sitting at her desk writing, and it's just a shot of her writing for like 20 seconds. Like that. Also, they would not do a shot that long. And also, like, it reminded me of in Bart the Genius. Bart writes in a very similar pose for a long time.
Yeah, we just revisited season 1 last year, and there's a lot of extended letter writing scenes that I think they learned was not very interesting to watch as a cartoon. A character sitting down to write a letter.
I wonder, like, how once they've learned to not do that anymore, what are the tricks in their little toolbox for getting around that? When it's like, okay, somebody's writing a letter, is it just now we're going to dissolve to like their face and their hands and make it look more dynamic, or do they just say like, no more letters, guys?
Or you'll just hear the end of the letter, and then they just stuff it in an envelope and walk off the screen. I mean, earlier, I think on the commentary, they mentioned that they felt bad that they would write extended things like Homer listens to the radio, and then the animators have to find out what to do with that scene. And Homer's very funny in that scene, but a lot of it is just him like wiggling his fingers as he listens to the music,
bobbing his head up and down. It's a funny set of drawings, but yeah, it is. For the longest time, I've felt bad for the Simpsons animators who often just get handed a script, but like, you figure it out, guys.
I do love how they can. I mean, sometimes I'm looking at Homer when he's doing nothing, and his eyes will get that extra kind of dumb look when his like pupils are kind of small and he's just not doing anything, and they can get a laugh out of me just looking at a character that I've looked at for a million hours, and then I'll laugh when he's doing absolutely nothing.
I miss when they would do, like in these episodes, they do like the eyes would bulge on a word just for emphasis. Like these little things that are lost over time. I miss them. And so then Bart decides he's going to cross instantly over the tracks into Bumtown, also seen in the season 7 Itchy and Scratchy episode. But there's some really funny signings. I like that at the massage parlor, they put ironic quotes on the word massage. I like that a lot.
I didn't notice that. That's great.
And also they have a sign that says, we have rot gut, which is I'd never heard of rot gut before, but it's a powerful low quality liquor that is called such because it is very strong and cheap, but it fucks you up in your stomach. Yeah.
And also in the background, I believe the tuxedo store is closed.
No, I missed that one.
That was
That's
a good,
great.
very subtle joke.
Oh, I love that. But Bart sells his blood here, which George Meyer tells the story of trying to sell his blood and finding out he couldn't.
They took me in off the streets to sell plasma. I don't know what George Meyer's deal was. He could have looked like a hippie or something.
He was like a deadhead, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Maybe he was in. Maybe they don't like hippie blood.
Well, I will say that's get me on my gay rights soapbox here, but I haven't given blood because if you are openly a gay man for the longest time, you couldn't. It was like
wow, I forgot about that.
Out of HIV fear. I don't know. I haven't tried to give blood in a while, but that was a very bad rule for a long time. Though I'll be honest, I wouldn't try to give blood because whenever I have my blood taken at a doctor's office, I am out. I am just I need 20 minutes to give me that apple juice box that you give to the little kids here because I need it.
Bart is giving plasma, which I've done before, and it takes a long time because you're strapped in this machine and they suck your blood out and then they spin it around and take out the plasma and put the blood back in you.
Ugh.
Whoa.
And I was able to buy one Game Boy Advance game with my winnings.
Not worth it.
And yeah, this blood bank scene here too is a big cut. Weren't a ton of big cuts, but this is where the biggest one was. In the original script, you go inside with Bart and see the nurse take his blood. And we found, looking it up, there's not any footage out there of it, but there was a drawing from the animation stage of them showing the nurse taking Bart's blood. So I think they did animate it, or at least got far animating it.
At least layout happened, I think.
But unfortunately from seasons 1 through 3, there's almost no deleted scene footage out there. And then Bob, you had a funny, I think you cracked the code on why that is.
Oh, I think it's just because Klasky Chupo has it all, and Jim Brooks doesn't want to work with them to get some of these materials back. I don't know if they inherited them when they switched to Film Roman in season 4, but I honestly believe it's no coincidence that once the Film Roman seasons start in season 4, that's when they have access to deleted scenes.
Yeah.
Or else maybe Klasky Chupo just threw them out. Who knows?
Could be.
But the nurse in this scene, it is such a tiny, tiny line, and she'll appear later in the episode. Uncredited, Carol Kane, which I want to say probably because Jim Brooks was, the creator of Taxi, and she was on Taxi, but for some reason did not want to use her name, but she will later play Maggie in the dream sequence as well.
Carol Kane, a comedy legend. She's so funny. Everything she's in, I love her. For the longest time, I didn't know that was her, and in Mike Reese's book, he said it, and his 2018 book, he mentioned it, and Al Jean backed it up on Twitter. But then we watched the commentary, and they actually do say it, but it goes so fast.
Everyone says it 0.3 seconds apart from each other, so it just overlaps and becomes just a smear of audio.
I had missed it for so many times, but also the bit, so then in the script, and I wonder if they animated this too, I'd feel really bad if this got cut because it sounds like a lot of work, and then if they cut it, it's that when Bart is knocked out, he then has, there were originally 2 dream sequences in this. He would have a dream that he ruins the first Thanksgiving, and it's the Simpsons family with Squanto, and they offend Squanto. Bart's mean to him, and then all of the Native Americans try to kill the Simpsons, and Bart then wakes up to the homeless guys. But I hope they didn't animate that entire sequence and then cut it. That'd be really harsh. And I love the dream sequences back in these days, and the animators do so. I mean, the dream sequence later, one of the best stuff they ever drew. I love it. But yeah, so I think as a kid, I didn't understand you even could sell your blood. That was a new idea to me. But yes, Bart passes out. We cut back to the family. I like that the mom just says, "I'm sorry I came." just mean to the end. Meanwhile, Abe tells a story about how Homer is just a complete pushover and had never had any self-confidence as a child.
And he gleefully agrees with him.
Yeah.
Yes, Dad.
Just this broken man child is like, that's right, Dad. I had no free will of my own. So then Bart wakes up, and this is when the episode almost verges into very special episode thing. There's an episode of, I think it was a Christmas one, of Saved by the Bell. Of like,
I was going to say Saved by the Bell.
Yeah. Of it, what was it? Zach befriends a homeless girl and her father, right? Who live in the mall.
I only know that because it's the most memorable episode of that show because they leave the school.
Right.
There's another set, which never happened.
But this whole, I think they undercut it enough, but it definitely is the setup of a normal sitcom of the magical homeless people teach you the true meaning of a holiday kind of thing.
And in the script, they have names, Rory and Casey, although I don't know which is which.
I love whichever one Dan Castellaneta is voicing. It's I kind of love that when he does a voice for a side character, but it's like kind of not hiding his voice at all, and the kind of character is sort of kind of sounds like Homer. I love just being like, oh, I'll just do this kind of straight. But I also, in that scene, I felt like I was getting ready to cringe, either that they were, that it was going to be harsh about homelessness, or that it was just going to be the trope you're talking about of a magical hobo. And then I did feel like they kind of walked the line kind of well, where it's like Brockman is being kind of shitty to them and stuff like that. But you could feel the show is sort of on the right side without overdoing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the show definitely agrees that it's hard to be homeless, and it sucks that these people are lost to society, and they get like the line that comes later in this when the guy says, "See you at Christmas." I'm like, oh, they don't get fed every day like this. This is a special thing for Thanksgiving. And I guess by having Kent be the asshole who is using their pain for his television show, I think that at least helps them a little bit be like, hey, maybe we're not totally doing that ourselves because we're making fun of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yes, the homeless guy, one of them it's also a bit of Bill Murray from Caddyshack too.
But Tim is right. He definitely sounds a lot like Homer. He's got the Homer beard line. He's balding too. So this is a Homer from a different reality. Things went much worse for him.
Yeah.
But yes, Bart gets a meal with his new homeless friends.
All right, 12 big ones and free grub to boot. Viva Skid Row! Hey, it's that anchor dude from Channel 6.
Oh, yeah, he's doing one of those be thankful for what you got stories.
Oh, we have lots of names for these people. Bums, deadbeats, losers, scums of the earth. We'd like to sweep these people into the gutter, or if they're already in the gutter, to some other out-of-the-way place. Oh, we have our reasons. They're depressing, they wear ragged clothes, they're crazy, they smell bad.
Hey, listen, man.
Wait, I'm going somewhere with this. So, every year on one lone conscience-salving day, we toss these people a bone. A turkey bone. And that's supposed to make it all better.
That's such a, to me, it feels like such a great writer joke too, that Kent, an editor would have told Kent to say half as much, and the point is there. But he says it for so long that the guy just has to go like, hey, come on, right here.
And you're so right about the Bill Murray thing. I didn't really pick up on that the first time, but that is Castle